Today, we're discussing the resignation of World Economic Forum CEO Klaus Schwab. I have kind of made the World Economic Forum one of my specialties. I have been to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting the last 3 years in a row. This week, we have all these charges being leveled against Klaus Schwab. Why? The guy's been in charge for 55 years. He announces his resignation last year. And now, boom, this hits major media. Everywhere it's being reported. Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd? I feel like something is up. I feel like something is up here because welcome to another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton. And today we're discussing the resignation of World Economic Forum CEO Klaus Schwab. Now, this is very interesting to me because not only the timing, I mean, it was announced on the same day as the Pope's death, but because of where all of this is going. Now, let me say on the front end that I started a series on Russia's history, Ukraine, how we ended up in this war. But I'm putting that aside today for just a moment because what is happening at the World Economic Forum is very, very interesting. And where it's going, we can only speculate. But I did want to put this on your radar because I think it matters. Now, Klaus Schwab is the founder and sole chairman of the World Economic Forum since its inception in 1971. He founded it. And now all of a sudden he's resigning. He had announced last year that he was resigning. But it was going to take some time, he said. Few years for the handoff to take place. Now suddenly he has resigned not only as the chairman of the World Economic Forum, of the WEF as we call it, but also from the WEF board. So a question arises, why? Why? And what does this mean? And should I care? I mean, does it actually matter? Well, first, the question of why. You might think it's because he's an 87-year-old man and, well, it's time to hang up the cleats. That would be the assumption of most, I think. Most people would have resigned, 15 or 20 years ago, not Schwab. But that's not the reason. It's not age that he is resigning for. It's something else. Schwab, as I said, had already agreed last year to step down from the WEF. And he had told the board, look, this is a very complicated job. And it's not something that I can resign and clear out my office and then someone else come in and know what they're doing. It takes a couple of years for a transition to occur. Now, that to me is actually kind of funny because it's sort of assuming that the job he has is more complicated than being, well, a pope or a president of the United States or prime minister of Britain or president of France, where one term ends, boom, and the next one begins, period. There's a handoff of the baton. But Schwab says, you can almost have, a little ticker, that runs across the bottom that says, don't try this at home. Don't try to be World Economic Forum chairman at home. The next person needs my input. And for me, and again, I'm reading tea leaves here. I want to be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Some of what I'm reporting to you, it's in the news, it's known, it's from his own statements. But exactly what it means and where it's going, I'm speculating. And I'm speculating not based on nothing, but the fact that I have kind of made the World Economic Forum one of my specialties. I have been to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting the last 3 years in a row, and God willing, I will be there again in January 2026 in Davos, Switzerland, and we'll see who the new head is at that time. But I think that what Schwab was doing was he was trying to keep a foot in the door. He didn't really want to resign. And I think he's been getting pressure behind the scenes. There's been a lot of talk about Schwab resigning for years now, for probably a decade or more, about him resigning. All of it coming to nothing. And then suddenly he says, yes, he's going to be stepping away. Last year, he says this, but that it's going to take time. And again, I think it was just because he wanted to stay in charge. He wanted to draw this out as long as he could and remain relevant in that process. But now something else has happened. So he wasn't walking away willingly. There's nothing here that gives me the impression that Schwab was resigning willingly. That last year, his announced resignation was because Schwab thought, you know what? I think I just want to go and sit on the lake or in my Bonvillian mountaintop resort and look down on the rest of the world. I don't think that was going on. And so that I don't think sat well with other power players within the World Economic Forum. They wanted him out. And the idea of this long, drawn out resignation, of his long farewell, his multiple laps, around the track, waving to the crowd, they just wanted him out. I have said before, both on this show and in a series that I published for the Daily Wire, I have said that I believe that Schwab, and I've always gotten this impression when I've been at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, that Schwab had become an embarrassment to the members of the very organization that he had founded, members who have much bigger aspirations than his own. They want to make the World Economic Forum a world government, or at least a conclave. There's a word for the day. A conclave for the establishment of a world government, whether it be via the United Nations or the World Health Organization or some other governmental body. I believe that is their objective. Schwab is in their way, or rather I should say was in their way, because he has now resigned completely, totally. Now, why was he in their way? Is it because he is an anti-globalist? Is it because Schwab was a pro-democracy man of the people? Well, certainly not. He's a globalist. I have argued that he is a fascist, not a Nazi. Nazism and fascism, all Nazis are, as I have pointed out on this show before, all Nazis are by definition fascists, but not all fascists are Nazis. And that's because Nazism involves anti-Semitism. I don't think Schwab is an anti-Semite. I think he's a fascist. All Nazis are anti-Semites, in addition to being fascists. So it's not because he's a good guy. It's because he's an embarrassment. And because their ambitions now go beyond his own ambitions. It's because Schwab, why is he an embarrassment? Because he's been a lightning rod for negative publicity. Indeed, he's a bit of a joke. Think about it. His occasional wild attire. I mean, look at this. His family connection with Nazism. There are all kinds of wild rumors that float around social media, alleging that his dad was, Hermann Goering or Heinrich Himmler or Hitler himself. Nothing like that. His father, headed a company that was making heavy water for the German effort to make an atomic bomb. So Schwab himself, that is Klaus Schwab, he was not a member of the Nazi Party. I mean, he was born in 1938. The war ended when he was 7 years old. But he has a kind of proximity and family connection to Hitler, to Nazism, that just doesn't make for good World Economic Forum marketing. It just looks bad. And they don't want it. They don't want it. It's like he's the son of, of George Wallace. They don't want that connection. And also just look at him. And as a rule, I don't like making fun of people's appearances. Caitlin Collins has become a lightning rod for that on social media as of late. People, generally speaking, people can't help the way they look. I mean, you can help some things about the way you look, the way you do or don't wear makeup, or what you do or don't dress, or how fit you are or are not. But I mean, in terms of your bone structure and your height and these kind of things, you can't, that's just the way God made you. But Schwab invites criticism, and he does, unfortunately for him, because his octogenarian, bald-headed appearance is so similar to Donald Pleasance's version of the Bond villain, Ernst Stavro Blofeld. I mean, so much so that it's jarring. I had my graphic design guys make this little graphic right here. I mean, you got to love this. I mean, I don't know how they do it. I don't know graphic design. This is better than Photoshop. But they have here put Klaus Schwab's head, via my request, by the way, on the Donald Pleasance, the 1960s James Bond version of Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Well, he's petting the cat. I mean, it's funny. It's funny. And you must understand the kind of people who go to the World Economic Forum. Other than myself and Rebel News and a few others who go there, generally speaking, these are elitists. As I tell the posse all the time, and anyone who watches Ideas Have Consequences, please do not refer to the left as elites. That is a compliment to them. They are not elites. They are elitists. They think they are better than you. They are sure that they have been given the prerogative to rule the planet by virtue of their DNA or, some kind of, demonic deity. It's just the way they think. I mean, if you've ever been to any kind of real lefty soiree, and I have had the misfortune, sometimes the great amusement of being at many. And these are people who are incredibly condescending and arrogant, like you just cannot believe. And they're the kind of people who, are swirling their champagne at some kind of, meet and greet in a multi-million-dollar Manhattan high-rise, and who have no idea what the rest of the world is like. Have never set foot in a red state, much less into the life of blue-collar people. And it's because they're sure that they're better than those places and those people. It just is the way they think. And for them, Klaus Schwab is an embarrassment. He is an embarrassment. His German-accented, utopian, megalomaniacal declarations like this one right here.
The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room.
So there you have it. I mean, look at that. Is that the guy you want representing your organization? Be you on the left or the right? The future is built by us. I mean, he's even shaking his fist just like Adolf Hitler used to do in his old speeches. And I think the elitists who attend Davos every year, when Schwab, they have tolerated him because he founded the organization. And they do give him credit for that. He founded it. He had the vision for it. But I think the fact that Schwab has insisted on being ringmaster at Davos every year, front and center, rubbing elbows with all the heads of state, I think those people are all going, oh gosh. There he goes again. The future is built by us. By the way, all those people there, they believe that. It isn't Klaus Schwab's ideology that they want to distance themselves from. It's Klaus Schwab's persona. You see the difference? It's his persona that they want to distance themselves from. It's the Bond villain appearance that they want to distance themselves from. And these are people who want Davos, as I said on Steve Bannon's show, War Room. They want the annual meeting at Davos to be the Oscars for globalists, full of elegance, full of beautiful, elegant people. That's what they want. They want it to be their private reserve, their country club, and they don't want Klaus Schwab as the head of their country club because the rest of the world is making fun of them, like me and many other people. Rightly so. He's a caricature of a Bond villain. And for a class of global elitists who fancy themselves as at the top of the pile, they don't want him. He's Billy Carter. You remember Billy Carter? Are you old enough to remember Billy Carter? I was just a kid, but when Jimmy Carter became president of the United States, he had this embarrassing brother, Billy Carter, who was actually quite funny. But Billy Carter would be filmed, his political opponents would be sure to go and film Billy Carter, who would be like, say, at a belly flopping contest at some redneck pool. He started marketing Billy Beer. Billy Beer. I mean, he was Jimmy Carter's redneck brother that he wanted to pretend did not exist. And the media was going to remind the world, no, he does exist. Here he is. That's who Klaus Schwab is. He's I don't mean in terms of, the persona, not the same, but he's the embarrassing relative they don't want. He is Barack Obama's African brother, who actually seems like a pretty cool guy. But Barack Obama wanted to pretend he did not exist. You know who he never gave a White House invitation to? His brother. Wanted to pretend like he does not exist. What's another comparison? He's Kamala Harris. Klaus Schwab is Kamala Harris, a candidate they did not choose, but they pretended to like. But now a woman from whom they wish to distance themselves and pretend they never knew. Well, Kamala who? What, her? No, I don't know her. That's the way Democrats are behaving right now. Although she's still being talked about as a potential candidate in 2028. But Democrats don't want her. They have to kind of, yeah, we like her. They have to kind of pretend, but they don't. They don't. And this is Klaus Schwab. This is Klaus Schwab. It has been my contention all along that Schwab isn't what many have assumed him to be, some master manipulator, Ernst Stavro Blofeld, though he does look like him. And it is fun to make that comparison. I do picture Schwab, and it's not just, by the way, his appearance. It's where he has chosen to host the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. I mean, you remember, and by the way, I have to throw this in. It's not just Donald Pleasance's Ernst Stavro Blofeld. It's Telly Savalas. Telly Savalas played Blofeld in, I think, at least one Bond movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So both are bald. And the modern iteration of Blofeld is, I don't remember the name of the actor, but he's got lots of hair. The old Blofeld didn't. And those guys, guess where their hideout was? High in the Alps. High in the Alps. Exactly like Klaus Schwab. And with the German accent. I mean, it all just is too good. It's just too good. It's the stuff of a movie, but real. And again, I keep emphasizing this. They are embarrassed by him. I have sensed that at the WEF every year. You know, you originally go thinking the author of these books, and I have them all here. COVID-19, and then the infamous phrase, the Great Reset. And then we have the Great Narrative. You know, all of these books by Klaus Schwab, they read, by the way, like TV manuals. They're not riveting reading. But you go to the World Economic Forum thinking this is the mad genius behind the whole thing. And I quickly started coming away feeling like that's not who he is at all. He's not Adolf Hitler. He's not Blofeld. He's not the master manipulator. He's none of those things. He's a technocrat. He's a technocrat. Having read his books, having attended the WEF, it dawned on me that he was none of those things. He's an engineer by training, a professor of business by occupation at the University of Geneva. And by the way, WEF headquarters are not in Davos. They're in Geneva. And I've been there as well. And you can hear that he's a technocrat, an engineer, in such statements as the one we just played for you. The future is built by us. Built. He uses the language of an engineer. It's how he thinks. And he's a technocrat insofar as he's absolutely enamored of technology. And that's the way a lot of these guys are. They are, you know, an inch wide and a mile deep in terms of their education. You know, the humanities. Let me just throw this in, just as a former educator. I can recall lunchtime debates with colleagues in academia who are from the sciences, mathematics. Everyone wants to believe that their own field is the most important field. It's just, it's human to think that. And in a sense, it's okay, because you should believe in your field. Whatever it is that you do, you should believe in it. Whether it's sales or, you know, splitting the atom, it should be something that you believe in. But sometimes we become very myopic and we think that our field is the only field. And the problem that I frequently ran into with the guys from the science department, or, you know, ladies from mathematics, or whatever the case may be, is to become so myopic that you think that your field is the only one that matters. Indeed, the university, the college, the school would be fine if all that was there was your department. That's the way people often, you know, lean. And my own feeling is that, listen, my degrees are in history, European history, Russian history in particular. And I would caution, if one of my children are all grown now, they were all graduates of college, but any young man who told me that he was going to pursue a degree in history, I would want to caution him, because I'd say there's not much money in that. But I would say there's value in that. I mean, if you're going to a university where you're being properly educated, a Eurocentric, curriculum, and where, I mean, there is a gold standard in writing, and there is in history, there is in education. And I would want to say that a degree in history or a degree in humanities is extremely valuable personally, or can be personally, but not economically. I mean, it's a little bit like saying, I want to be in a rock band. I mean, your options are limited. There's been a few of us who've been able to turn it into something, but it's not an easy thing to do. But the point that I would want to make here is that if you are simply educated in the sciences, in mathematics, then you're lacking, or you run the risk of lacking unless you've received it via, informal education, within your home, based on your religious convictions. You're lacking a moral core because, Ted Kaczynski, who is remember, Unabomber. Ted Kaczynski, had a PhD in, physics or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but in some scientific field, superbly educated. But he had no moral core. And the humanities, literature, Christian theology, history can impart that to you in a way that science cannot. What was it that, Einstein is credited with saying? Science can tell us how to build an atomic bomb, but it cannot tell us how to use it. And you need that. And see, the problem here with the World Economic Forum types, with technocrats like Klaus Schwab, and he's soon to be relegated to history, but he's going to be followed by other technocrats. And these are people who they're almost orgasmic at some new technological development. Artificial intelligence, they just cannot stop talking about it. They just love it. And I think that if you have the restraint from the wisdom that has been imparted through a proper theological education, through literature, from history, there's a part of you that says, just because it can be done technologically doesn't mean it should be done. And these guys, there's no brakes with them on technology. That's the thing you feel, is that you go to the World Economic Forum and no one is pumping the brakes. If we can clone a human being, why not? If we can create a surveillance state, why not? If we can chip people and track absolutely everything they do, why not? And wisdom would dictate that isn't imparted by science or mathematics. Engineering, a technological degree, would say, hold on just a second. Maybe we should rethink this. You see, do you understand? And I know that's a little bit of a rabbit hole that I just took you down, but it's the problem that I have with the technocrats that meet. There's many other problems I have with them, but it's a problem that we have with these types at the World Economic Forum. They feel to me like they're absolutely sociopathic. They're absent any kind of actual moral core. And hence the reason that their policies are, as I have said, fundamentally anti-human. You see, so parents, as you're thinking about educating your children, math and science are wonderful tools to have, and certainly very marketable, professionally speaking. But please impart to them via sound Christian teaching, theology, literature, history, things that can impart a moral core and moral wisdom that you're not going to get in those other fields. There's a reason that they go together, and why traditionally the university, they were all unified under the various disciplines were unified under the queen of the sciences, which was theology. We're way past that now. But anyway, that maybe is a conversation we can have at another time, in another episode of Ideas Have Consequences, about what an education, might look like, perhaps should look like, certainly what it used to look like, but no longer does. But see, these guys are technocrats. They are educated an inch wide and a mile deep, and there's no breaks. There's no moral breaks. There's no conscience at the World Economic Forum that is saying maybe we shouldn't do that. Hence the reason they've arrived at the kind of places where they have, with policies that are fundamentally anti-human. And you can hear, again, in Schwab, you can hear, just listen to him. Listen to any talk that he's given. There's a zillion of them on YouTube. You can hear the language of the technocrat, of the engineer in his talk. So he's not what so many people have thought that he was, that he is, this rebirth of Hitler, or something like that. Doesn't mean he doesn't have wicked globalist goals. He does. It's just it's not his persona. It's not, I don't think it's within him to achieve that. I mean, if it was, he's 87, he'd have done it long ago. No, what Schwab did was he had the vision to create a European forum for business leaders to meet, share ideas, and network. That's what he did in 1971. And the popularity of that business forum surprised even him. I mean, the very first one drew more than 500 people. And so he expanded its scope to include world leaders, to include politicians, to include policy makers, to include academics. Soon he was rubbing elbows with presidents, prime ministers, dictators, and other heads of state. And he liked it. Schwab is P.T. Barnum. That's who he is. He is the popularizer of globalism. And the globalists don't like his version of the advertisement. So they want to move him out. He's Mr. Networker guy. That's largely what the WEF is it's a place for globalists to come and meet each other and to plot together. It's also a place for companies to sell their technologies to globalists. So you see a lot of that there as well. But he's Mr. Networker guy. He's P.T. Barnum. But now they want him out of the way. So how do they do it? This week, we have all these charges being leveled against Klaus Schwab. Why? Listen to this. This is from France24.com. You can find this article. The Wall Street Journal has a piece out on this, numerous others talking about this. But the headline reads this: WEF, again, World Economic Forum, WEF confirms investigation into claims against founder Schwab. The World Economic Forum said Wednesday it had launched an investigation into fraud allegations against its founder, Klaus Schwab, that reportedly prompted his resignation this week. And I'll just read you just a few paragraphs from this article. The 87-year-old Schwab, who for decades has greeted presidents and tycoons at the annual forum in the Swiss resort town of Davos, said there was, quote, not a shadow of proof for the accusations. He added in a statement to the Swiss newspaper Blick that he has started a defamation proceeding against his accusers. In a statement confirming Wall Street Journal report, the WEF said its board of trustees, quote, unanimously supported the Audit and Risk Committee's decision to initiate an independent investigation following a whistleblower letter containing allegations against former chairman Klaus Schwab, end quote. The longtime forum leader suddenly resigned on Monday, quote, with immediate effect, end quote. In a statement at the time, the WEF board hailed Schwab's, quote, outstanding achievements in his 55 years in charge. But the Wall Street Journal reported that the move has been spurred by a board decision to investigate allegations of financial and ethical misconduct by Schwab and his wife, Hilda. So that to me is fascinating. The guy's been in charge for 55 years. He announces his resignation last year. And now, boom, this hits major media. Everywhere it's being reported. Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd? Strikes me as odd. Charges include, and again, well, just listen to these charges. The charges include using ATMs to withdraw WEF monies for private use, allowing an atmosphere of sexual discrimination and harassment. 3, his wife staying in fancy hotels on the WEF dollar. 4, Schwab frequently told his colleagues that he wanted them to promote him for the Nobel Peace Prize. And 5, He ripped an employee for parking in his designated spot at the WEF HQ in Geneva. Now, listen, our natural human inclination is to believe such charges when they're leveled against people that we don't like. It's our natural inclination to do that. But that's unjust, and it is unchristian. All are to be treated fairly, equally before the law. And when we bend the law to suit our purposes or just simply disregard it, we become lawless. I mean, we become no better. We become no better than our enemies who do it all the time. So we don't want to be that. Regardless, the charges, they've been made against Schwab, and they are, we're told, being investigated, quote unquote, independently, whatever that means. And we'll see what comes of this. But it all feels pretty bogus to me. Now, anybody who's watched Ideas Have Consequences with any kind of regularity would know that I'm no defender of Klaus Schwab. But in this case, I feel like something is up. I feel like something is up here because these are all charges that kind of fall into a gray area where it's left to interpretation. I mean, he's created an atmosphere of sexual misconduct and harassment. What does that mean? I mean, from a legal standpoint, how is that even, really enforceable? But there we go. He's taking money out of supposedly ATMs to fund his private life. How much money can he even take out of an ATM? $300? $400? $500? I mean, Schwab is, by all accounts, a multimillionaire. It strikes me as weird. It just strikes me as weird. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do it. I don't know whether he did it or not, but it all strikes me as just an odd accusation. Really, I mean, does he need a few $100 out of ATMs in order to fund his private life? I think not. I'm inclined to say that he doesn't need that. These are all the kind of charges that are first of all, they're embarrassing charges, which works to the advantage of those who want to get rid of him. And second of all, they're in a gray area. So it's left, if not to a court, then to a board to adjudicate. And the way they'll adjudicate depends on how they feel about Schwab. I mean, the guy's been in charge for 55 years, and you're really going to tank him because he took some money out of an ATM to fund his personal life? I mean, it just strikes me as weird. And really, do these people actually care? Meaning the board members. Even some of these news outlets that are reporting it. I mean, do they actually care about any of these charges? I would suggest to you that they don't. Consider their global agenda. I mean, they've been pushing, the WEF has been pushing every kind of evil agenda around the world. I would prefer that Klaus Schwab be charged with promoting wicked anti-human policies from smart cities to depopulation. Now, there's some real meat on those bones, but they're not charging him with that. They've been okay with that. That part is fine. But by golly, if he misused his debit card, then they're coming for him. And I don't think they care. Now, again, I'm speculating here, but I think they just want him gone. And they want him gone now. And since he has now resigned completely, both from the board and as the head of the World Economic Forum, handing over leadership to the board and leaving it to them to choose whoever they want as the next head. Right now, it's a creepy-looking guy who is supposedly just a fill-in, who's the head of Nestle, chocolate products. You look that guy up. He's very strange looking. He looks like a cyborg, which doesn't help, by the way, with their image that they're going for. It just puts them right back, where they started. Hence the reason I think he probably will not be the guy that they ultimately choose. But now that Schwab, it's no longer a long goodbye. It's no longer a long farewell spread out over several years. He's resigned effective immediately, from both the board and as chairman of the World Economic Forum, I believe that these charges will quietly disappear. They achieved what they wanted. They achieved what they wanted. Now, it'll be interesting to see what Schwab does, because he's launching defamation suit against his accusers, which may mean that he will want to go after the board. Klaus, listen, you've been full of advice for the whole world. I mean, for the whole frickin' world for 55 years. I want to give you a bit of advice. These are people who might off you. Right off into your globalist sunset and say no more. And my guess is these charges will disappear. But if you insist on trying to sue them, if you insist on trying to embarrass them, we're going to get a headline that says that Klaus Schwab has committed suicide. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see something like that. And listen, I'm here for it. I'm here to watch the drama unfold here. But I don't think these charges are legitimate. How has this not come up for 55 years? And they're petty, and they just want him gone. And since he's resigned, I think they'll be good with that, and the charges will disappear, provided that he doesn't proceed with his defamation suit against others. Now, finally, on the question of should you care, the answer is yes. I think you should care, because it's going to be interesting to see who they appoint and what direction the WEF takes. Again, coming back to what I said at the beginning, I think the WEF leadership has wanted to take this roadshow to the next level and to make it a kind of world government, not necessarily where the World Economic Forum itself is that body, but where it might just be the gathering place where they're making those kinds of determinations. And listen, Schwab was all on board with that, but again, he's not the guy they want anymore. He's passé. They want him gone. They don't like his Nazi connections. They don't like the Bonvillian, kind of persona. They want him out of the way. And they want to turn it into what they want to turn it into. So who they choose here is going to be very interesting. And that's going to tell us a little bit about where they want to take it. Now, I have called the World Economic Forum the HOA from hell. If you know anything about HOAs, then you know what I'm talking about. If you live abroad, you maybe use a different terminology, but an HOA in the United States is a homeowners association. It's a collective where people, agree, sometimes not, where they agree to certain rules that govern their neighborhood. They're a kind of private government that says where you can and can't put your trash cans and where you can and can't park your car and what color your house can and can't be. I mean, it's this kind of stuff. And this is what the World Economic Forum kind of is it's an HOA from hell, kind of a global version of an HOA that wants to insinuate itself into every aspect of your life. And it is, as I have pointed out before, because there's a fundamental difference in the character, in the personalities of people who are generally conservative versus those people who lean leftist. And it is this. The average conservative gets up in the morning, gets a cup of coffee, and begins to think about their day. The average leftist, and they are all leftists at the World Economic Forum, the average leftist gets up in the morning and they get a cup of coffee too, and they think about your day as well. Not theirs, yours. That's the kind of people we're talking about here. So the direction that the World Economic Forum is going to go in the post-Klaus Schwab era is going to be interesting. But they have offed him in terms of his career, in my opinion. They have gotten rid of him. That's what this is all about. That's why they've put wind in the sails of these allegations. I think they'll disappear quietly. Either that or Klaus Schwab will himself disappear. And we'll find that out because, again, I will keep you informed because I will be, as I've been for the last 3 years, I will be at the next World Economic Forum. God willing, I want to stress that, God willing, he could remove me from this earth today. But God willing, I will be in Davos at the World Economic Forum in January 2026 in order to be your boots on the ground, your spy, informing you of what is taking place. This has been another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton.